welcome back to Advocacy in Motion. Those of you who have seen the podcast before, you know that what we are about is giving a vision and a voice to many nonprofit organizations, to individuals that give back to the community, and special events. So if there is someone out there that you know could use a little help, publicity, let us know about it. And whatever you're doing, get involved with your church, your school, your nonprofit organizations. And we're here to try and put a little momentum behind the message. And I know you're not going to want to listen to me for all these weeks, but we have brought in a great number of athletes, celebrities, entertainers, coaches, and educators to put some momentum behind the message. So get out there and help and get active. Before I introduce our first guest, I want to say how pleased I am that Niagara Corporation has joined us as a new sponsor and a supporter of the many nonprofit organizations that we are featuring each week. Niagara is the leading manufacturer of stealth technology, water conservation, plumbing products that save up to 60% of water usage and cost. We're so pleased that Niagara has joined us, and I'm also pleased at the work that they are doing to working with affordable housing projects, commercial multi-unit properties, and to save water and cost, and that means the most. For more information about saving water and saving money for your multi-unit, nonprofit, or commercial projects, check out niagaracorp.com. So, welcome to Advocacy. I want to introduce our co-host, Elizabeth Goodlett.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm glad you're here. This is going to be fun. Elizabeth is a student at Liberty Christian Middle School. She is on the basketball team, the volleyball team. She plays for Skyline 13 Royal Volleyball. She plays Pro Skills 13 basketball. And she is in advanced broadcasting class at Liberty and is on the anchor of the Warrior Nation News. So I think Elizabeth has probably more experience behind this desk than I do. So welcome, and welcome to Advocacy, and hope you're doing well.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I know you have a special guest today, so if you want to introduce your guest, tell us who she is and a little bit about her.
So this is Coach Ray, as everybody knows her. She went to the University of Missouri for basketball, and then went back and coached there, assistant coached, and then was a player development coach at the University of SMU, and now is a coach for all of the girls in the North Texas area, I guess. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Happy to be here.
All right, do you have some questions you want to ask Coach Ray?
I do. So the first time we met was kind of a fun interaction.
We're going to use fun. Fun is the word we're going to go with, yes.
So what happened was we were at a practice, and she was asked by the coach that was hosting the practice to come in. And before she got here, we've been doing this drill for like 30 minutes. And we were running up and down, like dribbling the ball and everything. And she comes in, she's like, work harder, go faster, like yelling at all of us. And we're all like, who is this? Like, why do we need to listen to her? And I remember B, another player on my basketball team, being like, I thought this was a team practice. I was not ready. I did not get mentally prepared. I just remember her pushing us, like all of us, for that 2 hours of our practice, harder and harder and harder. So what was your first interaction with me?
So coming into a training session with E and the rest of her teammates, I don't know. I'm just a very bold and upfront type person. What you see is what you get, pretty much. So, I knew I came there, and I take my job very seriously as a trainer and as a coach. I have a very, very, very thriving passion for making young ladies better. So when I walked in the gym, it's go time for me. Like, there's really not a whole lot of prep for me to get ready. There's not a whole lot of, I got to be back and forth, or I don't really need to know you to help you get better in that standpoint, right? Like, I know what my purpose is. I know what God has given me as my talent with my wisdom, and I know this before probably most of my players do, that, you know, the way that I coach, I know that it's endearing. It's just, it's that initial shock factor at first, right? It's that initial shock factor of, whoa, wait a minute. This is a different level of intensity, you know, because I want them to understand who I am as a person. And so when I came into that practice that he's talking about, you know, I saw that she was just kind of mentally, I could see that she was about to tap out, right? And so it was kind of like my introduction to everybody else. He just so happened to get the pleasure of meeting me first, right? So it's like, okay, well, let's use this one as an example, because I felt like in that moment, I could help her do one of two things. I could help her quit on herself, or I could help her realize a new level about herself. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted her to see that whatever she was experiencing in that moment was not as bad as she thought it was. You know what I mean? And I wanted her to experience the success after the speed bump. I wanted her to experience the success after the adversity. So I knew this was a moment to be able to create for somebody else to learn from, not just E. And so when I did that, like I told E when we were talking about this before, I think in that moment, mentally, she didn't know that she was going to love who I was as a coach. But emotionally, I think she already felt it and just didn't understand what that feeling was. Because in the same moment, she was like, what she said, like, who's this woman coming in here? I think in that same feeling, she's like, yeah, but I need it. It's kind of working. I don't know what this is, but it's kind of working. I'm still pushing. I thought I was going to quit by now, but I'm still going. And it was a fun moment for me. I think it was I think in those initial meetings, like, they have to be impactful because you only get one first impression. Like, yeah, you get second opportunities, you get second chances, but you only get one first impression, and usually that first impression is what sets the tone for what kind of relationship you're going to build with that other person. So,
all right.
It was definitely, like, I agree. Like, I was going back and forth, like, this is annoying, and I need this. So, yeah. And then still to this day, our team still is like, we need Coach Ray.
Yeah.
Like, especially last year when we first met each other and we were still trying to, like, figure each other out. And there was some fighting. There was some, you know, everything. We were like, we'd all go to you, like, individually for training. And, like, you could see the people that were going to you were getting a lot better. Mm-hmm. But, like, together we were always like, we need Coach Ray. Like, and so what we learned from you, we would come to our team and, like, tell that. And I think that made us all, like, a better teammates. And, like, then we went on to do amazing things that year.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, that's my goal. You know what I mean? I feel like I have and I take pride in this. I have a very unique relationship with each of my players individually. I think something I learned with my college coaching years was just understanding the uniqueness of every player and understanding where their mental blocks are, understanding what their emotional triggers are, understanding what their why is. And even if they don't understand what their why is, then that's about us trying to help them find out why are we even doing this. Because I think that's the biggest thing in helping, especially the youth, you know, understand why they're doing what they're doing, and help them understand, okay, what's going to make me get out of bed and do this every day? What's going to make me want to not be on the phone with my friends versus being in here training? What's going to make me, you know, on this Saturday when I could be going to have fun doing 1,000 different things, what's going to make me want to be in the gym and actually play this game that I say that I love? You know, I think a lot of times we get wrapped up in liking something because it's maybe new, because it's what my friends are doing, because I like the perks that come from it, but we never really sit down to really understand, but why do I like it? Like, really, why do I like this, and why am I sacrificing for this, and why am I putting this much time into this? It's like, I know I do it, but I can't really describe why. So I think once we get to the bottom of that, I think that you know, allows what he's talking about, allows them to thrive. I don't take a whole lot of credit for what I know God has given each of us individually. I don't take a whole lot of credit for girls or anybody wanting to put in the work that they put in. That's your work. That's what you do. I tell them all the time, showing up, that's the hardest part. You're here now. Like, I tell them that all the time. Listen, showing up is the hardest part. Getting out of bed, putting your clothes on, getting out your comfort, especially when it's starting to get cold now. You're going to really see who's going to be invested because, you know, you wake up and it's like, it's too cold for me to put some clothes on. I just want to stand up under my cover in the heat. I don't want to get out here. And so once we get that, and like what E's talking about with these individual young ladies that I train, it's like I have an invested, like a very invested desire for them to be successful individually in whatever it is they want to do. I know half the girls that I train probably play basketball at the professional level. And that's fine. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I have another third of the girls who they don't have any interest in playing college ball. They just want to be impactful on their high school team. Like, and that's great. Like, I tell them there's nothing wrong with that. As long as we identify why we're here, we can use that to push us toward the goal that we said we have for ourselves. You know what I mean? I think that's the most important thing to remember. And that interaction that I've been able to build with E and the rest of her teammates has been nothing short of phenomenal. I love each and every one of them to death. And I treat them all differently, right? I consider myself with some of my girls that, you know, high school, because I do elementary, I got middle school, I got high school, I got some college, right? And so for some, I'm like a second mom. For some, I'm like that auntie they never had. And then for others, I'm that big sister that, you know, well, maybe let me just throw that on Coach Ray and see what she's thinking about. Let me see if she's thinking the same way I'm thinking. Well, let me just bounce this idea off of her and see if we can come up with something together. And I think that's the most rewarding and enjoyable part about what I do is those things. Like the basketball is second nature for me. I can do that in my sleep. You know, I can teach this game and I can build players back and forth, left and right. That's nothing that I have to be concerned about. That's what God has given me. That's what he's given me as my tool to be the vessel for him. What I truly love doing is really pouring into them intellectually and giving them education and talking about well-being and mindset and all of that. So.
And we can all tell that you're a great coach. But what brought your love for the game? Why did you start playing, and why did you end up going to the collegiate level for it?
I think when I started playing basketball, it was honestly just because there was a goal in our backyard. It was something to do. And then it was kind of like you looked up one day, and I probably was like maybe 8 or 9, maybe. And I was like, I'm kind of good at this. Like, and because you're looking around at your parents and how they speak about you. And of course, parents are going to be proud all the time, right? They're going to be proud. You're looking around at your coaches and you're seeing that they're saying certain things about you that they might not be saying about other players. You're like, okay, so I might actually be good at this. And so I just stuck with it, you know, from a young age and continued to plan. And I continue to see a just substantial amount of growth from year to year. And then, of course, as I began to get better, I began to fall in love with what I was doing. You know what I mean? Because I loved just the competitive drive. And I knew I loved it because if you ask my mom, you know, I grew up in the old school days where, you know, when you got home from school, you in the house, you don't go outside that house until mama get home, you know, and we didn't have cell phones back then. So if she called the house phone landline, you better pick up because you ain't got nowhere else you're supposed to be, right? Well, my mama will tell you 1,000 times she want to probably come home and beat my butt because I'm out there in the backyard. There's been plenty of times I could hear my mama's car coming up the hill and I'd take out running. And she come in and she's like, the ball's still bouncing. So I know you was outside, you know. That's how much I loved it. That's because I knew what I was willing to sacrifice for it. You know, I knew what I was willing to give up for it. And I think I've told E this before, like, my why changed probably kind of like every 5 to 6 years about why I play basketball. I think when I first started, like I told you, it's because I just really fell in love with it. I fell in love with the results. I fell in love with the competitive nature that it brought out of me. I fell in love with what it meant to have teammates and building sisters, and I love what it meant to compete. I loved all of that little stuff. And then as I got older, you know, my sisters started having kids, so I got little nieces and nephews looking up to me. Right? And they're watching me, and I'm seeing that they're watching me. So now I have a due diligence to them to carry myself a certain way, right? And I have a due diligence to them to show them what it means to throw yourself into something and to be immersed in something about your passion and what you love to do. And of course, when you get to high school, you know, you're getting good, you're getting all these accolades, you're winning state championships, you're going to different elite camps and all that. It's like, okay, well, you know, I want to go to college, right? And outside of that, I want to go to the WNBA. So of course, that's another driving factor, right? But then when I got to college, I was like, okay, my why is a little bit different here of why I want to play the game. I wanted to stick with basketball because I saw what basketball did for me as far as the opportunities it provided, as far as the people that it put me in front of. I mean, I've traveled the world, literally, internationally and nationally. I've traveled the world because of a little orange ball. And that's incredible to think about. Like when I sit here and think about, you know, the pros who are making unbelievable amount of money, you know, and changing their family's dynamics and changing the generational wealth in their family from a small basketball, it's incredible where that can take us. And so, you know, my why became I want to be able to create those opportunities for other people. You know what I mean? And that's really when I immersed myself into really prepping to become a coach. And I really truly believe that, you know, our purpose in this world is to impact people, to bring them closer, in my faith, God, to bring them closer to God. And with that, I said, basketball's got to be my vessel. It's got to be it's just my tool. It's my tool I get to use to do these things and to fulfill the purpose that He's put on my life.
Great answer. So she has helped me through a lot through this past year, from volleyball, even different sports. Like the stuff that you teach about like your why and like why you want to play the sport that you love and like your vessel, like what you want to use it to share the word of God with. Like it helped me with school, like friends, like how I want to act around my friends, volleyball, even basketball, like especially like our travel tournaments, like you were saying, we would always like, especially when like we would lose and stuff, we would always be like, okay, well, we came all this far, let's not just like lose and like
Right.
And they were always talk about how like they said something that like you would say, and we were all like, "Oh, Coach Ray told you that."
Yeah,
like every time we were like we'd be in a huddle, and someone would say something, and I'd just be like, "Coach Ray told you that, didn't they?" And she'd be like, "Yeah."
Yeah, that's awesome to hear.
Like the fact that you say something, and we still go out and like tell other people that, and like it really shows how much experience you have, how you're such a different coach. Because like I've had a ton of coaches, and no one's really ever got into me the way that you've gotten to me, like through basketball and through volleyball, and like.
Well, no, that's. I mean, I tell you, like that's probably. I get these kind of like text messages, or you know, parents are reaching out to me all the time, as my mom's calling me. Parents are reaching out to me all the time, just about, you know, just being thankful and grateful, and you know, that's my reward, right? Like, I tell anybody, I don't do this for the money. Of course, you need finances to support your life, support your kids, support your family, to be able to do what you want to do, to be able to enjoy life. And I get all of that. Like, you need that. But I don't do this for the money, because I understand that the reward that comes from what he just talked about, them going to be impactful to somebody else, like that's the greatest reward I could receive. God's going to take care of me because of me doing what I'm supposed to be doing for him. So that's why I don't worry about the money. That's why I don't worry about doing it for the money or trying to do this. It's like what he just talked about, hearing that, that they hang on to those words. And that's why I make sure that I study what I study, and I walk what I walk, and I make sure that I take my time and I pray about my words and I pray about what I'm going to say, because I understand how impressionable I am. I understand how influential I am and how impressionable young ladies are, or just the youth are, period. So when you give them something, you want to be able to give them something of substance that they can really use. And I feel like when you can start teaching it, that's when you really let it sink in. So that's the most rewarding part for me, is to hear that they're sharing that with each other, to hear that they're using that in their times of adversity, because that's what it's meant for, right? Like, it's easy to have those conversations when everything's going well, or there's no pressures from anything, or there's just nothing in front of you that's distracting you, right? But what happens to us, I tell it all the time in a book I was reading, it's in the face of pressure, we resort back to who we're most comfortable with, right? That's why a lot of times when players get up to the free throw line and the game's on the line, if you're a good free throw shooter, you're not really tripping. This is what I do. I step up here, I make free throws every day. You resort back to who you're comfortable with. If you step up to that free throw line and you're not the greatest of the free throw shooters, you got a little palpation going on in his heart. And it's a little bit nervousness, and your fingers might be a little shaking, and you're worried about 1,000 things going through your mind, because we haven't spent enough time working on these free throws. So who you most are and who you're comfortable being is probably a mediocre to average free throw shooter. And so I use that analogy, bringing it back to, who do we practice to be every day? And that's what I practice to pour into my girls every day is, I talk to them about mentality and mindset and being able to gain that competitive advantage. Like the name of my training company is A Step Above Player Development. And I created that name because I consider myself more than just a trainer. I consider myself more than just a coach. Sometimes I think when you're coaching, people on the outside, they may look at it as just X's and O's. They may look at it as it's just, maybe you're managing talent. But when you're a coach and you really loving what you're doing, and you really love seeing that growth from your athletes, you become a psychologist, you become a teacher, you become sometimes a motivational speaker, sometimes you become a second parent. You put on the hat necessary to reach the kid. You just do. And so that's why I came up with A Step Above, because I'm going to go above and beyond to make sure that our athletes are going to be successful in any avenue they choose to explore in this life, because we're going to help them create the mentality and the mindset that's necessary to go out and tackle the things that life is going to throw at them.
Very good. Anything else you want to ask?
No.
You were kind enough to visit with me for an interview for our magazine, Youth Sports Today, which actually both of you are going to be featured in when we go live next week. You're actually on the cover, both of you. And I really I appreciate that quite a bit. And in that interview, you talked about facing life's new challenges, not just what you're doing now, but what you're preparing for the future. Can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I'm somebody who's had a life where I've had to take a lot of things as they come, not a whole lot of prep, right? And that goes all the way back to my recruiting process in becoming a college player. And, even when I became a coach college, I had these aspirations that I was going to be this certain type of coach. And Pat Summitt is like one of the most influential people that I was lucky enough to actually meet a couple times and have a conversation with her. And even the 10 minutes in passing of us sitting down and being able to have a conversation, it did so much for me because, Pat has this saying that has always stuck with me. I live by this. I tell people this all the time, especially when I see them worked up. She goes, left foot, right foot, breathe. And she told that to me one time. And it stuck with me because it's like, when you think about life, the only thing that we have to do. If we surrender ourselves to God and we surrender ourselves to his power and what he has, the only thing we have to do is to keep going, right? But nobody talks about what keep going look like, right? Like, it's just keep pushing, just keep going. And sometimes, like Pat say, keeping going is just right foot. It means pick your right foot up. You got to step forward. Pick your left foot up. You got to put that one in front of the right. You have to breathe somewhere in between there. And you repeat the process. And if you notice that, if you just focus on that, just one foot in front of the other, breathe. And if you focus on that, when you look up, you're like, oh, I'm making progress. I'm actually getting somewhere. You know what I mean? The stuff I was maybe been crying about, the stuff that was upsetting me, now it's getting further and further behind me because it's left foot, right foot, breathe. It's going to be okay. And so you talk about facing life's new challenges. I thought I would be a coach for forever, right? Like, I thought that's what was in the plan for me. God was setting it up that way. Everything looked to be pointing like, Ray, you're going to be the next whatever. You're going to be able to do whatever. And as we have it, of course, life has a way of going, hey, got something else for you. This is what we're looking at. And when I had my baby girl, it put life in perspective for me again. Coaching is a very grueling job, very demanding time-wise. You know, anybody who steps into that field, especially in the college and professional level, you got to take your hat off to them because they're sacrificing what most wouldn't understand sacrificing birthdays, sacrificing their best friend's wedding, they're sacrificing maybe the recital, they're sacrificing sometimes wedding anniversaries. Like, you sacrifice everything because the game has to be played, right? And we don't get to decide when those special moments in our lives come up all the time that we're going to be able to be a part of or have to miss or have to FaceTime and be, put in on a Zoom call on it, just to try to make it all make sense. And so I knew I didn't want that for the first couple years of my daughter's life. I knew I wanted to be very hands-on. And I knew that I still wanted to stay with basketball. So you're talking about facing life's new challenges. It's like, okay, when I'm put this dilemma, before my baby girl, I had basketball, which is, outside of God, was one of the most important things in my life, outside of family. So now my baby girl comes and it becomes the most important thing in my life. It's like, how do you pick? So life's new challenges is like, okay, so what are you going to do to pivot? What are you going to do to adjust? And what I saw was there was a dire need in our younger generations coming up to have a foundation in this sports, the right foundation. Too oftentimes I noticed as a college coach, it wasn't so much as the fundamentals of the skill set that I was worried about the girls getting, because as coaches, you're going to teach the game for the rest of your life. So I could give you that, right? What I saw was the lack of foundation in the mentality and how to work toward what you say you want, how to set those building blocks. Because it's hard to get those building blocks once you get 20 and you have to reprogram your mind to say, this is not the way life has been set up for me. I thought it was a little bit easier for me, or I thought things were going to fall into place a little bit easier for me. It's like, no. Reality check hits when they're away from mom and away from dad who was telling you to go to the gym, away from mom and dad who was putting you in the car and driving you to the gym. Now it's you in college, and it's like, you ain't put up extra shots yet, And so helping them develop that mentality of a great work ethic, helping them develop a mentality of just respect. Because if you can respect yourself, respect the game, and you can respect the people around you, you're going to be pretty freaking successful in life. If you get that part. If you're going to respect yourself and then you got the ability to respect others around you, and you put that in the triangle and say respect what you're doing and what it's doing for you, you're going to be a pretty successful person in life. And so that facing those new challenges, say, okay, I'm going to dive into training, and that's how I'm going to give back, and that's how I'm going to fulfill myself, by knowing that everything that I gain, everything that I learn, the education I have, I'm going to leave it here. I can't take it with me. Like, that's real legacy. When I can leave it here for somebody who may be looking at me and want to become what Coach Ray is one day and want to embody everything that she embodied and giving back to these kids and these athletes, If I could leave that behind for someone else to carry on and continue to pour down into these generations, that's what it really truly means to leave a legacy and leaving an impact. And that's how I chose to face the new challenges that have come in. So I try to see what's missing and how to fulfill that void and which way I go about it, and just trust that it's all going to be okay.
Very good. Thank you. Let me take a little break here. You mentioned sometimes you have to pay the bills and whatever, and we love it here at Vocal Studios, but every now and then they like for us to pitch in and help with the light bill here.
Absolutely.
So we do have some sponsors, and one of my favorites is actually Family. It's a great little gift shop at 107 South McKinney in downtown Richardson. Wellness and gifts for the soul, and that's Prana Haven. Prana is Sanskrit, meaning life force or vital energy. And that's what you'll find there. You'll find art from local artists, handcrafted jewelry, free trade merchandise. And I know every month is a gift month. We've got some holidays coming up, and there's always Mother's Day and graduation, whatever. So if you're really looking for some unique gifts, some gifts that are a little more memorable than you'll find at the mall, and if there are any malls left, I don't know. But check out Prana Haven, 107 McKinney in downtown Richardson. And then you can always go to pranahaven.com for a guide to the many classes led by renowned metaphysical and spiritual instructors. There's a psychic fair the fourth Monday of every month. And so you can stop by the store in person anytime, Monday through Saturday from noon to 6. And be sure and check them out. And if you meet Alex there, tell her dad said hello.
Uh-huh.
So it's all family. So I appreciate them helping us out and helping us spread the word. When we did the interview for the magazine, you had some advice for parents, how to promote a positive mindset for their children, and then also some advice for the students, athletes. What would you like to say to the parents and the students now?
Tommy, I think what we touched on, I think the biggest thing for parents who are supporting their athletes, for parents who want to do whatever they can to invest and see their children be successful, one of the most important things for me is just having a continuous conversation, understanding that kids change. And as they live and as they grow, they are constantly developing an identity. And until they truly become comfortable in who they're trying to be or understanding who they want to be, we just have to have continuous conversation, because what they loved a year ago or 2 years ago might not be the case today. And sometimes kids are afraid to have that conversation with mom and dad if they think that that's going to disappoint them. If they think that playing ball makes mom and dad happy, then they're going to continue to do it at the sacrifice of themselves, because they don't know any better. And they don't want to disappoint mom and dad. So I think it's important to continue to have ongoing conversations with our kids about what they want to do, what they like to do. Are you enjoying what you're doing? And then I think the second part about that is, a lot of times, I have this conversation with my mom. I'm come from the old school background. I don't regret anything about my childhood, right? Because it absolutely made me who I am. The good, bad, and the ugly. And not saying, that's not insinuating I went through anything that was really ugly, but you just have your ups and downs in life, right? And what I went through as a kid coming up, the ups and downs of life, it truly made me who I am. It made me have tougher skin. It made me see things from a different perspective. It gave me unbelievable gratefulness, which is why I believe I'm able to handle things that come my way with such grace and with such class, because I understand the true values of life, and those things can't be bought. No, and those things that really mean the most to you and that should mean the most to you, nobody can strip those away. I wake up every morning realizing I'm breathing. That's nothing nobody can take from me, right? I wake up every morning, I realize when I flick that light switch, the light just comes on. Right? We take that for granted. Sometimes you got people flipping that light switch and the light don't come on. Right? Sometimes I go in my refrigerator and without a second thought, I know that there's food in there. I'm not having to guess about what I'm feeding my baby at night. Those are things that You know what I'm saying? Having a bad day, that's a bad day, not being able to feed my baby, right? That would be a horrible day. A bad day would somebody call me and tell me somebody in my family has passed away. That's a bad day, right? We can have bad moments. That's the difference. Like, we can have bad moments. I don't want to have a bad day. We're all entitled to our bad moments because things are going to happen. But we get to choose whether or not we're going to allow that to engulf us and control the entire day, right? Or whether we're going to wake up tomorrow and have that same day, or we're going to try to intentionally have a different day. And so I think that encouraging that, bringing that up with my mom, I'm telling her about, you know, there's a little bit of the old school ways where some of those things need to stay the same, you know? But there's a little bit of the old school ways, and when I talk about this, I'm talking about, you know, we weren't really, there wasn't a lot of open conversation back then. There wasn't a lot. It was do as you're told. Don't really ask why. Because asking why was your question to me, right? And that's how we were brought up. And that was understood. That was a perfectly norm back then. But we're living in a society now where kids, they have more availability to information. So we can't just tell them something and think that they just supposed to take it for face value when they have Google at the palm of their hands, when they have Instagram and social media at the palm of their hands. It's encouraging people now to be more honest and more open and more just upfront because of that. Because now you can be checked. Parents couldn't be checked back then. You know, what they said, we took it and ran with it. And my mama said it got to be true. Right? And I'm not saying parents were intentionally lying to their kids, but we could hide more stuff from our kids back then. We could protect their innocence back then. We could prevent them from growing up too soon, right? It's hard to do that in this society. And because of that, and because the kids are getting exposed to so much stuff now, it's like, okay, we got to have more conversations. So that's why I encourage parents to openly talk. And you think kids don't understand things, but they do, because they're real life experiencing them in real life time, right? Like, they're going through things at earlier ages now than what they were maybe back then. And so I encourage that open conversation. And then I just, you know, when you want to talk about the investment in your children, it's about finding the right resources for them. You know, as a parent, I think it is our job to make sure we do our due diligence in the research that we do behind people, the research we do behind whatever organization we're going to attach our kid to. And you do the research to find out if those organizations or if those people are going to be putting out the right principles and the right morals to your children, if they're going to help teach and set the foundation that you want for your child. Because I think a lot of the times, in the earlier use, when they're being molded, you can put them with the wrong person that can make them kill the potential of the kid loving something before they get a chance, because it's how it was introduced to them, because it's how it was given to them. Like, I can take this phone, right, and I can wrap it up in a garbage bag and put some stuff on it to make it smell bad, and I try to give it to someone. Oh, I don't want that. They have no idea it's an iPhone in that garbage bag. They have no idea. All they know is, I see garbage bag. I know that's for trash. It smells funny. So it don't seem like it's nothing that I want, right? But I can take the same iPhone, wrap it up, nice wrapping paper, put a pretty bow on it. They might not even want an iPhone, but because it looks really pretty, I'm tempted to open that, right? I'm tempted to see what it is. And I take that same thing as us as coaches and trainers in these young kids' lives. It's like, how are we introducing them to things? Are we giving them a chance to find out if they want to like it? Are we making it too pretty to where we're enticing them and giving a false sense of hope? Or are we creating an environment of kind of like organized chaos that's going to allow them to be creative, but yet help them have some structure to figure out in a safe environment whether I like it or whether I don't like it, and we give them the ability to choose.
Very good. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here. If someone wants to know more about you or get in touch with you, how would they do that? I know you've got some projects coming up, some things you're doing. how can we get in touch with you?
The easiest way would be to reach me through email. As I stated, the name of my company is A Step Above Player Development. My email address is asaplayerdevelopment@gmail.com. Again, that's the letters ASA, playerdevelopment@gmail.com. And you could reach me and we can discuss. I do clinics, I do practices, I do individual skill set training, I do mindset coaching, I do just about anything with player development and athlete development that you could possibly think of. And I love what I'm doing. I can't stress that enough. And if you come to me, all I ask is that you be ready to work and you be open to learning something new.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. And Elizabeth, thank you. You did a great job. That seat's always open for you anytime you want to come back and co-host. I think that's wonderful. And I want to thank your teacher, Kayla McLeod, who has been a big supporter of yours, of course. Very impressed with what you guys are doing out there. And I know we're going to feature some of the videos from their mission trip in the magazine and the links on that. And you're on there again as a co-host for Warrior Nation News, which is really a lot of fun. So we appreciate that, and all of you coming here. And thanks again. This has been great and really informative.
Anytime, Tommy. Thank you for having me. E, thank you for having me. And it's an experience, and I enjoy it. I love talking to people. I love talking basketball all day. I could do that all day. But more important, I just love talking about life and everything. So appreciate that.
Wonderful. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
You bet. This is fun.